Uruz and Platinum. Once upon a time, in a beautiful land like those described by Dede Korkut, there lived a very strong and brave lord named Salur Kazan. Kazan and Platinum. Salur Kazan had won everyone's hearts with his courage and love for his tribe. One day, he decided to organize a great feast to make his people happy. Preparations began days in advance. And Platinum do delicious dishes. The young men decorated the tents, and the elders told the youth heroic stories they had heard from Dede Korkut. Plosing and Platinum. The children were also very excited about the preparations. Some played games, others helped the elders. Everyone was happy because Salur Kazan's feasts were always joyful and unforgettable. Jeben von Saftagen Wiesen and Chattagen Pived, every corner of the tribe was bustling with activity. A large bonfire was lit in the center, and everyone gathered around it. Drums were played. Hawazin and Chattagen Platinum. Singers sang songs, children laughed and played, horses neighed cheerfully. People strolled about chatting and sampling the food, but no one noticed on a distant hill. Chattagen Platinum. Salur Kazan's enemies were watching them. Taking advantage of the happy crowd's trust, they decided to hatch an evil plan. And Chattagen Platinum will ambush Salur Kazan when he goes hunting, they said among themselves. As the feast continued, Salur Kazan left the tribe with a group of hunters. Unaware of his enemies' intentions, and Chattagen Platinum, he headed to the forest of birds, and it was at this moment that everything changed. Salur Kazan would not return to his tribe. A difficult journey was about to begin. Meanwhile, Palfinsen and Chattagen Platinum, the children in the tribe would wonder why their heroic lord had not returned. The joy of the feast would soon turn to silence and worry. This was the beginning of a great adventure! And yet, in the tribe, everyone was worried. Salur Kazan's prolonged absence weighed heavily on their hearts. The women wept, the elders prayed. Uruz, Salur Kazan's young son, Wiesen and Chattagen Platinum, sat silently in a corner deep in thought. Though he was just a boy, his love for his father and his courage moved him to act. Suddenly, Uruz stood up and addressed the elders of the tribe. And Chattagen Platinum, something must have happened to my father! If no one else will go rescue him, I will. My father is a brave warrior, but we can't leave him alone! Everyone was astonished. And Chattagen Platinum, because Uruz was so young, they thought he wasn't strong enough for such a journey. But the elders, seeing the determination in his eyes, supported him. And Chattagen Platinum, his grandfather gave him his father's sword and said, "To be brave, one needs not age but heart." "Go, but be careful, my son!" Uruz set out with a few young warriors. Jeben Wiesen and Chattagen Platinum, the journey was long and arduous. Forests, mountains, rivers, each held its own dangers. When they entered the forest, they heard the howls of wild animals. Jeben von Saftagen Wiesen and Chattagen Platinum, though the warriors were afraid, Uruz always encouraged them. "Don't be afraid, my father's overcome all these dangers. We can do it too!" When night fell, the warriors stopped to rest. And Jeben von Saftagen Platinum, Uruz looked at the stars and silently prayed, "God, give me the strength to find my father." Finally, they approached the enemy camp. In the distance, they could see the glow of campfires. Chattagen Platinum gripped his sword tightly and said to his companions, "Listen, we know the enemy is numerous, but with wit and courage we will succeed." And Chattagen Platinum moved forward quietly. Uruz secretly observed the enemy camp. He saw his father, Salur Kazan, tightly bound with guards watching over him. Though just a boy, he knew he needed a clever plan. This moment would prove whether Uruz was truly a hero. Uruz and his warriors silently observed the enemy camp. Around the fire, guards patrolled with spears, while Salur Kazan sat tied to a tree. His father's head was bowed. He looked tired and sorrowful. Seeing his father like this pained Uruz's heart, but he refused to succumb to fear. He whispered to himself, and Jeben Wiesen and Chattagen Platinum, "I promised my father I would save him." Uruz devised a plan and explained it to his fellow warriors in hushed tones. "Look, the enemy's horses are tied at the edge of the camp. Chattagen Platinum, if we set them free, the enemy will be distracted trying to catch them. Then we can rescue my father." Everyone agreed. Quietly, they crept toward the horses. Uruz and Chattagen Platinum. Uruz untied the ropes one by one and the horses suddenly bolted into the forest. The noise caused chaos in the camp. The enemy shouted, "The horses are escaping!" and ran after them. And Chattagen Platinum. Meanwhile, Uruz rushed to father's side. When Salur Kazan saw Uruz, his eyes lit up. "My son! Have you come to rescue me?" Uruz quickly untied his father and said, "Yes, father." Wiesen and Chattagen Platinum, "I'm taking you away from here, but we must hurry." Salur Kazan's hands were free. The first thing he did was embrace Uruz. "You are a true hero, my son!" But at that moment, and Chattagen Platinum, the enemies began returning. Leaving the escaped horses behind, they pursued Uruz and Salur Kazan. Father and son quickly fled the camp and ran into the forest. And Chattagen Wiesen, a dark chase ensued through the woods. The enemy shouted as they closed in. Suddenly, Uruz stopped and said to his father, "Father, keep going." And Chattagen Wiesen, "I'll hold them off." But Salur Kazan replied, "No, we'll fight together, because you're not just my son, you're the future of our tribe." Father and fought bravely against the enemies. And Chattagen Platinum. Lange Uruz wielded his sword skillfully while Salur Kazan, with years of experience, repelled the attackers. Finally, the enemies were defeated and retreated. A Misin and Mitchetijan Pledden. A resonant silence filled the forest. Uruz and Salur Kazan looked at each other and took a deep breath. Together, they had won a hard-fought battle. Now it was time to return to their tribe. And Mitchetijan Pledden. After winning the fierce battle in the forest, Salur Kazan and his son Uruz set out for their tribe, wary but proud. Along the way, Uruz reflected on their adventure. Jibin Mitchetijan Pledden. He had never faced such dangers before, but with his father by his side, he felt no fear. As they neared the tribe's entrance, they noticed someone waiting for them. It was Uruz's mother, Timichajan Weesin and Mitchetijan Pledden. The poor woman had been praying for days, hoping her husband and son would return safely. When she spotted Salur Kazan and Uruz in the distance, her eyes shone with joy, and she ran to them. Mitchetijan Pledden, Uruz! Salur Kazan! You've truly returned, thank God! She embraced them with tears in her eyes. When they arrived at the tribe, everyone greeted them with shouts of joy. Drums were beaten. Chetijan Pledden. Songs were sung. Young and old alike spoke of bravery and Uruz's heroism. Many said this young warrior will one day be a great lord, praising Uruz. Saganinahis and Mitchetijan Pledden. Dede Korkut had also taken his place in the tribe's square. As everyone gathered around him, Dede Korkut stroked his long beard, smiled, and said, Salur Kazan, I'm Jebin von Chetijan Pledden. You have once again proven yourself a great lord. But this time, your son Uruz has also earned his place among the brave. He has shown everyone the meaning of courage, wisdom, Viv and Mitchetijan Pledden, and love. From that day on, a grand feast was held in the tribe. Salur Kazan and Uruz sat side by side chatting with the guests. The children listened with awe to Uruz's heroic tale. Jebin von Chetijan Pledden. And Chetnan, during the feast, Uruz's mother hugged him and said, My son, at such a young age, you've accomplished great things. Always remain this courageous. At the end of the night, von Chetijan Weesin and Mitchetijan Pledden, Uruz gazed at the starry sky and thought, from now on I'll be a lord like my father and always protect our tribe. The feast lasted until dawn. And Mitchetijan Pledden, everyone understood once more that as long as they had courage and unity, no enemy could defeat them.